When do you start thinking about leadership change in an organization?
God, it's whenever you're ready. Some people, they're going to stay as the founder leader because they love it until they're 80. Other people, they're ready to be exiting by 30.
See, I was ready to go after week one. Like, hey, somebody else can take this over right away. A lot of young companies that are founder-led, everyone's looking for the founder to implement a kind of leadership style and technique. So what are some of the things that you've seen that could be great pointers for some of the young and aspiring company owners to say, hey, listen, these are the attributes. This is what people are looking for. This is what they need.
I think what founders fail to realize.
This is the Contenders Edge podcast, where ideas challenge institutions and underdogs rise to lead in construction, bringing you no BS insights, real stories, and tech smart strategies to outbuild the giants in the construction industry.
Hi, Zoe, and welcome to the Contenders Edge podcast. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Zoe.
Awesome.
Nice
And first off, pleasure to meet you as well. First of all, you got to tell us you're from the other side of the planet. You're on the bottom half of the universe. We're on the other half of the universe. So tell us where you are right now.
But bottom or top depends on the viewpoint you have, Zoe. But no, I'm in New Zealand, so top of the South Island in a small little rural town called Motueka.
Cool. And is it true south of the equator, the toilets flush the opposite direction?
Haven't tested it myself personally, but that is what they say. I think ChatGPT says it does.
It doesn't know everything. It just bases off the Simpsons episodes. Half the stuff that happens on ChatGPT, they've already done on the Simpsons. Awesome. So thank you for being on the Contenders Edge. I don't know how much you know about our podcast. I know Angelina brought you up to speed, but Contenders Edge podcast is really for the contractors that are looking to develop and evolve, and the ones that are really competing above their weight class or their category to really punch above their weight class so they can really contend against some of the larger, more structured companies. So, and we're happy to have you here because as I understand it, you provide leadership coaching.
I do. I've done this for about, the last too many years.
Don't admit it because we're going to have to say, take your age minus that, and then you'll be like 21.
Everyone runs the maths instantly when you give them a time frame. But a very long time. I got introduced to this when I had my own companies and then got more passionate about this because I figured this was how you brought change about.
Change starts with at least one or two people, and then it works its way forward slowly. So let's talk about leadership and culture, because I know you're really big about culture and change and what it means from a leadership perspective, right? So you've got a behavioral model. Is there something you can maybe start the segue with and share what you're thinking and what your thoughts are, and then we can dive into specifics? Because really our audience is focused around the construction ecosystem.
Yeah, look, I had a background. My original business, one of my first large businesses that I owned myself, was in container depots and transport and logistics. So we were dealing with refrigeration engineers, welders and fitters, truck drivers. And for me, blue collar is my inspiration point for culture change. It's a very raw, honest industry. You know, they lead with resistance, but they let you know about it. And then merit is given on results. So for me, it's a very honest and clear industry to work with. And they're not, that industry isn't tainted by having read every self-help book and read every podcast. They roll their eyes at placards on a whiteboard or on a screensaver. It's very much the honesty of how you behave, how you interact, what you do real world, and does it create results?
I like how you mentioned that they're genuine and honest people. And really a lot of people in our industry, they haven't gone to these, I won't call it etiquette school, because they know how to behave in restaurants. They know how to behave on the golf course. They know how to behave in all these other places, but they're genuine self. And usually when you're your genuine self, you also bring some of the unsophisticated and refined qualities where you do roll your eyes. And I have rolled my eyes many a time in meetings where I go, so did you just roll your eyes at me? I go, no, not at you at all. At everyone in this room.
Oh, see, I'll find they'll say, yes, I did.
Yeah. Right. I've called people like the village idiots are in this meeting. I've called them all names, so it's all good. Let's get into a little bit more of the details. So we get a lot of young companies that are founder-led, and really everyone's looking for the founder to implement a kind of leadership style and technique. So what are some of the things that you've seen that could be great pointers for some of the young and aspiring company owners to say, hey, listen, these are the attributes. This is what people are looking for. This is what they need.
Okay, look, sorry, I just write down to make sure I cover your answer.
I'll just make it up as we go along. I won't run out for questions afterwards anyways.
I think what founders fail to realize is they think the way they work is common sense. And founders are often a little bit pioneering, so they think a little bit differently, they're willing to act, and they don't realize that that's a little unusual. So they can sometimes be, I would describe them as fleas in a jar. They have an idea here, 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 and they're kind of constantly all over the show. So what they don't realize is not everyone can work that fast and not everyone can keep that up. And although it can be pretty genius, it creates chaos. So a lot of founders, without even realizing it, will find someone to work next to them who provides the stability for them. They know they need someone stable, structured, filling in the details, fleshing it out. But then they often have conflict because they communicate in completely different ways. So really, if you want to create the harmony of the two strengths of those working together, the founder needs to learn his own weaknesses in that. And that can be a little hard because he's also so bloody clever. Or she, sorry, I should not generalize because there's a lot of women in this space now.
Absolutely. And I guess we have to I can't use the word they because the people in the United States will lose their mind right now because that's a whole other topic we can get into. So he and she, those are the two common active they. I'm cool, whatever floats anyone's boats. But it's very well said because you actually just reminded me a little bit about me. So thank you. I'm not a flea contained in the side of a jar. The jar is my universe, and I just fly everywhere. No, you've said it right. Most founders are generally impatient people, and they're not impatient. They just when people don't act as fast as they need them to act, that's where the impatient comes from. But if there's a genuine attempt at people acting, then they're okay with the patience. Then they're like, okay, I'll help nurture you along. So, how does a founder who hasn't reached their emotional maturity yet, because that's a real thing, and I can attest to it. I've crossed that 50 boundary where I can say how I behaved at 25 is not how I behaved at 35, how I behaved at 45, how I behaved, and I'm not at 55 yet. So we do have this constant evolution. Young emotional founders, how do they start learning to cope with themselves? Is there tricks or techniques that you can kind of point out to them other than calling you and say, "Hey, I need to hire you," which is the way to do it. But how do we start?
I would give you two key tips. One, you do not want to lose your impatience. Your impatience is gold, but you have to learn to harness it. Now, remember, I was this person, so I don't preach this from a grandstand of perfection. When I look back, I was brutal. Then someone introduced me just simply to the term lovingly insist.
Yeah.
So you don't drop the insistence that things move forward to the timeframes you've given, but it's not delivered with that harshness, I'll cut you off at the knees. It's delivered with, okay, so we said it was going to be delivered on Friday. What's happening? How do we get it delivered on Friday? What is the issues here? What's needed? So you lovingly insist, and so the brutality of your reactivity is not there, and you're then inquiring. So you can find out what is holding it up, what's going on. And there's got to be a genuine interest. You can't fake that, but you don't drop the deadlines ever.
And thank you for sharing that because I'm going to pepper that with a little concept. When you do have a deadline, checking in on the day of the deadline, it's probably the wrong day to check in. Just
I call that preventable.
yeah, and a lot of people don't appreciate that there has to be intermittent check-ins to know how
Absolutely.
they're progressing because usually by day one, after you've assigned the task, if there's an obstacle along the way, they're having it on day one. They're not having it on day five, right?
I love that. I got introduced to the analogy. I think it's fantastic and it would suit your audience. You need to be as the founder or key leader of the organization. You've got to be the structural integrity. You're the what is it called? What you put on the scaffolding.
Yeah, it's
You're
scaffold.
the scaffolding to the building. So you should not be the key builder. You should not be at the top of the building. You're the scaffolding at the side, seeing is it tracking, is it working, what's needed, what's not happening. So if you consider your role as that, you don't step away and neglect, but you also don't micromanage and get in the building. And I think that's important because I think people have flipped from one extreme to the other, sink or swim or micromanage, neither.
Yeah, and as a founder and as a leader, sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself, and that's really the instinct, and that's great if you want to have a one-person company.
Yes, and it instantly creates a hierarchy. If you step in and do it better than everyone around you, whether you've said the words or not, you've said you guys are stupid. That's exactly what you've communicated in that heartbeat, and they'll go, yes, I'm stupid. You're the boss, and they'll become dumb. So they'll live up to that expectation.
Well, I'm going to say that there's a lot of workers that are smarter than the most leaders of a company. They'll watch you do it for them and thank you for the paycheck along the way.
Yeah, it's
So
a setup.
there's a lot of those people that say, "You're smarter than me. Why don't you do it?" We call it delegating up. I had that very early, I won't say early in my career, kind of the first quarter of my career, where somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a hand with this?" And I looked at him. I said, "It's a great idea." I walked up into my VP and I go, "Hey, John, can you give me a hand with this?" And John looked at me and said, "Why are you in my office?" I said, "Well, we'll just use Angelina's name. Her name is Angelina. Angelina came to me and thought it was appropriate for me to step in and give her a hand. So I'm turning around and say, "Hey, I thought it was appropriate we hand you." He goes, "Get out of my office." I'm like, "Well, I guess we don't delegate up." And Angelina looked at me, Angelina, and I go, "I guess I'm not helping you either." And I just kind of walked away. And I go, "But if I don't have the tools in your hands and I haven't given you the tools, I haven't given you the training, you don't have the capabilities, my fault for hiring you. Otherwise, you should be able to get this done on your own. Thank you very much." And I walked away. So it's hard. It's very hard as a leader to step aside and just let them do their work and then
I
accept that
see
they
that
might
in
fail.
I see that in coaching, and people will come to me and say, "Hey, Zoe, how do I have this conversation with someone?" And if I answer them and say, "I would say this, this, and this," they walk away smaller and mimicking my words. And that's easy for me to do because, I know all the right words to use, but it takes a little longer to say, well, what is it that's going on? How would you use it? Okay, that will land not so well. Let's try again and take them to their own words. And now they've actually grown through it rather than mimic me. But
Which is well said because people like to mimic someone else as opposed to giving their clear conscious thought of how to get there by themselves and develop their own style and technique.
but it lands as inauthentic. I mean, people can smell it a mile away and they hate it, especially in blue collar. What they hate more than anything is inauthentic people. They'd rather you used horrific words, 6 swear words, but it was you. They get it.
Oh, should we compare swear words from New Zealand to Toronto? If they're any different?
I'm just warming up, so I won't just yet. You know me well, and then you realize I'm raised by pirates. But till then, I'll let you think
I didn't want to
otherwise.
say anything about your side of the world there, like how it got populated slowly, but we'll leave that. Well, that'll be a whole other topic for another day. So
No, sorry, I was going to come back to that point you raised about being in the construction sector. And I think one of the reasons I moved very fast through to leadership in the blue collar sector was I didn't have a technical clue. So when I was running trucks, I've never driven a truck. I've never been an engineer, I've never been a welder or a fitter. When I go out and take container numbers out in a depot, I get them backwards. So I never pretended I did know that. I always had the expert with me. So I never tried to add that. Whereas I think the challenge some of you have at the founder level is that you were the best at your game. So now you own a company. So you have to learn to use your expertise, but come in from the side as a viewpoint, not as the superior figure.
thank you for sharing that. And so I am not a tradesman by any practice. I mean, I have a degree in engineering. I don't think I practiced more than 10 minutes of engineering. I've solved a lot of technical issues as an engineer. My father taught me, I think, week one of me being in the construction industry, he asked me a very simple question, said, "Who's the least important person on a construction site?" And I named off everybody. And my dad looked at me and goes, "Whoa, boy, son, you're so far off the mark. It's unbelievable." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You." And I looked at my father and said, "Why am I the least important person?" He goes, "You don't lay down any bricks. You don't pull any cable. You don't install any windows. You physically don't paint anything. What do you contribute to a job site?" And I go, "Well, they need me." He goes, "Well, the job might be over budget. It might be behind schedule, and the client might be upset." He goes, "That's the three variables you do. Remove yourself, the building will still get built. Remove them, what are you going to build?" And he goes, "With your delicate hands, what are you going to build?" I go, "Dad, I'm tough. I can handle this." He goes, "No, seriously, appreciate that they're skillful at what they do. They don't have to have the social graces of writing fancy crafted emails about how smart they really are. They just want to get their shit done for the day and go on to the next day." So I learned that like literally a week into construction. And that was kind of really my trajectory. And then I was fortunate that I was introduced to emotional intelligence in 1997 when people are just discovering it in 2026. And for a lot of the leaders that are listening today, it's very important that they start getting caught up on emotional intelligence because really the world changed because even the workforce as you've been following it, I'm sure they're no longer the same kind of workers as they were 20 years ago. They're a different breed of humans.
They are, but everyone still relates to genuine human engagement. And we
100%.
call it words like emotional intelligence, but really it is, do you make eye contact? Do you say hello? Do you introduce yourself? Do you value the apprentice out there because he's the one doing sometimes the longest hours and the hardest work and managing health and safety because he cleans up everything? Like, you are that simple, and do you know what? You're probably going to have a good workforce.
Which is a layer of intelligence. Eye contact is not, it's different. I mean, if you think about it, people that are on the spectrum on the left and the right, they can't do eye contact, right? It's the meaty part that can do the eye contact, and the meaty part's even smaller when it comes to those basic skill sets. Because most people will not do this, or they'll do this and click, 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 click. They can't do it. So it's a skill, but eye contact is important, Zoe. I'm
No,
all with you.
I mean, it's none of these are rules though, right? Like you said, someone on the spectrum doesn't make eye contact. Some cultures don't make eye contact. They view it as some
Disrespectful.
people, in New Zealand, a Māori hongi, we greet so close, it's with nose touching. Other people, you can't touch a hand without someone taking offense. But emotional intelligence is not complicated. You read people's cues, you know? I once thought someone was completely disinterested because he was fidgeting and falling asleep in my workshop, and he was 22 years old. But then I thought, you know what? I've just dismissed this guy without any inquiry. And I went back and said, hey, is this kid okay? And he had a hole in his heart. They'd forgotten to do medical follow ups.
I won't.
Like I've had lessons from those kind of dismissals so prominently. So to me, one of the key attributes is inquire a little further.
And thank you for sharing that, because the reality is that we don't know people long enough to understand what motivates, ticks us, how we get there. You asked me a question earlier today that I have a little one. I'm motivated by a 9-year-old. I know you travel a fair bit because you told me how many times you fly across the pond to civilization. uh, but I actually was just in Europe this last summer, and I saw Italy through the eyes of an 8-year-old, which would have been different than my physical eyes. And I got to appreciate it from her perspective. And her perspective largely contributed or was attributed to chocolate gelato, chocolate flavored gelato, and how many different ways you can have different ingredients in chocolate and gelato. But that was her experience. And she, to this day, remembers all of her gelato experiences, but can tell you where they were in relative position of all of the different landmarks.
But that anecdote, in a nutshell, is emotional intelligence. Are you willing to look across and see through another's viewpoint? And that simply in itself will solve everything. You have conflict between silos, understand the other's viewpoint. Simple as that. And then you'll find your way to a shared result. I just did Japan with my 2 children. It's similar age, 10 and 12, and they designed the entire itinerary. And everyone asked me, have I seen this, this, or this? And I said, no, we were at claw machines. We were looking at 7-Elevens.
I literally will ask my daughter, say, hey, what did you think of that place there? She's like, I didn't really like the gelato in that corner there, because what I found was it was a little too watery. And I'm like, watery for you. Okay, good. Do you
So
describe
that's how you motivate that demographic. You look at the ice creams.
Yeah,
So know who you're relating to and engage at that level. Don't do what you think you want.
you know what I realize is that we both came to the same conclusion. There's probably only 2 or 3 manufacturers of gelato all around Rome and all around Venice, because there's no way the chocolate can taste exactly the same at nine different locations. So you know that it's like 2 or 3 manufacturing plants that are shipping the gelato to them. So, I mean, I'm sure somebody in Italy is going to put a hit on me, but that's okay. I think
You're quite stuck on this gelato topic.
it's kind of hot today in Toronto. We went from 12 degrees, which is for the Americans 50 degrees, and now we're at 90 degrees in a span of 24 hours. So I'm kind of fixated on ice cream right now.
It's funny. We had my ex-partner, he was missing his son's birthday. And I said, well, then do something exciting. What would he relate to? We sent an ice cream truck to the school for his whole class. And it was the coolest thing. His kid did not care that he missed his birthday. His dad was so super cool in that moment.
I won't lie to you. I did this whole Battle of the Books thing, and I brought all kinds of Dairy Queen to all the kids
Yeah.
in school. I'm like, here, pass. I mean, she goes to a small private school, so it's easy to hand out. It's always easy to do. All right, back to construction people because they're obsessed with chocolate and ice cream and all kinds of things, foods. All right. Um, how does a founder go about doing their self-awareness check? Like, do you have any tools or tips for them?
You can't sit there with your own mind and see what you can't see. Now, I know that sounds deep, but you're not going to come up with it yourself. You need to bring in other viewpoints. And it has to come because people will be a little intimidated by you. You know, founders, and if you've had a level of success, add hierarchy to that, add a little bit of wealth. And people are not going to be honest with you because they want your approval. Society endorses people of that structure. And I would say falsely endorses people of that structure because they are no better than anyone else out there because they've managed to pull something off the ground themselves or develop wealth. So you need to have some people who can challenge you around you. If it's not directly in the company, then that's a good sign you've created a hierarchy of attitude and you need to encourage that somehow. Otherwise, it might be your wife. It might be a good friend. It might be someone out the side, but are you actually validly willing to listen to what they're trying to point out? I know you cringe about the wife thing, but the amount of times people work with me as a coach and they come home to their partners and they say, wow, I learned this, this, and this. And their wife will say,
I told you that.
dude, I've been telling you that for 20 years. I'd give it for free.
It's something to be said about that. I mean, I won't lie to you. I won't say I'm fortunate, but my wife has. I've already told you that. I'm like, yeah, but I wasn't listening to you. Um, something that I've done for myself. I have a peer group of friends that we catch each other in our faults, and we support each other through our faults, and we also help bring each other up where we do have faults or areas for improvement. So we're constantly kind of saying, hey, we practice psychology on each other a little bit. And having a peer group is important. I mean, it's always great to have a Zoe in their universe to come out and point out the obvious for them. But starting with your peer group, because chances are, high performing individuals, when they hang around with each other, will realize that they have something in common. They're all kind of pent up on each other, so it's easier for them to beat up on each other as well because they've got that ego that comes along with it, right? So
You got to be aware if that's your only contact points because your social group will have some mirroring of you. And we have social, we like each other. So a real friend, it might be from an alternative viewpoint, and they are someone that will really show up for you. You know, they will intervene if you've become an alcoholic and you're risking your kids. They will say something unpopular to you and risk your friendship for saying it to you, not out of reactivity, out of the love and care they have for you.
100%. Yeah.
So they're your real crew.
So I know we went through a list of some questions that we kind of had out for you, but I want to actually talk to you about when you transition from founder-led organizations to other individuals are now coming into the ecosystem. We're currently experiencing that internally, where it was a founder-led organization where we're now letting the reins of leadership pass on to other people. And a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast are like, hey, I've been a leader for long enough time, but I'm transitioning, I'm bringing in new leadership. How do I transfer that line to other people and do it successfully? Because there's a lot of rejection when you go from founder led to now new leadership led.
So you mean how do you empower them and stop everyone bypassing to you?
100%. Yes.
Okay. Well, when you have to genuinely have decided, often people say they want to do that as a at a founder level, but they're so bloody addicted to it, and they have so much fun there. They get drawn in like a heartbeat. And people, like children, they'll play you off. If they don't get the right answer they want from the person you've delegated, they'll sneak off to you because you give them the ice cream, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you have to become vigilant of those kind of behaviors. So I'm a big fan of three-way phone calls and three-way meetings.
Mhm.
So, if someone's bypassing their boss coming to you, instantly get the person that is their boss on the phone to join the call and so you expose it. You don't allow them to have that loophole. Or they come to you and you just constantly redirect them. You say, hey, look, I am here if that is not working or you really need to pull on me, but you need to go through who I've appointed. So you don't disappear. But remember I gave the analogy of being scaffolding? Out of the way and off to the side. The most successful transition I've ever done with someone, they coached their GM for a year and the owner-founder went on secondment. And we told her when she could come in and for what topics. We gave them all the information, and we stopped that bypass happening. It was brutal, and it was so successful.
And secondment for all the people here in North America is sabbatical.
Sabbatical, yeah. She was owned an adventure tourism business, so she took the family into the backwaters of Australia.
What is it with you people down? So we'll get into that whole debate another day. Well, you guys like to do the backwater stuff. And we just want to
We
get
do.
faster boats and faster planes and faster here. I'm a city life. What can I tell you? Awesome. Thank you so much for that, because it's true that the bypassing happens, but I can tell you that one of the things that's kind of been a miss for a lot of founders is they don't know what they're looking for when they are looking for the next person to be their right hand or their left hand and their center hand. So is there stuff that you can maybe point out, say, hey, listen, they might be really good in the trades, or they might be really good in managing a group of people, but running a company is different than running a job site. Running a company is different than really knowing the trade exceptionally well.
Um, you don't want a mirror of yourself. That's for sure. And in that one example I gave you about the adventure tourism business, the founder was, your traditional, probably ADHD, a total genius, all over the show extrovert. So amazing. You put her on the stage, she's the story of the business, she raises the energy, she's amazing. But the person she needs to leave behind has the stability, she's more of an introvert. And you know what? She is creating just the same number of connections the other person was, but in a deeper, more quiet, gentle way. So you've got to recognize that it's going to look different to you and not try and make them you. Then the other thing is the key is somehow you've got to, and you wouldn't be deliberately creating a hierarchy, but just your sheer natural knowledge and passion of the business creates a hierarchy
Yeah.
because you are the number one point of call. So somehow we've got to push that next tier up to push you out. And you can't do that. So someone else needs to be helping them usually. Just learning how to challenge you, learning how to push back when you're off the rails. The next thing you know, they are running it just fine. Now, you said, what qualities do you need? I would look for the qualities that complement you, but also aren't limited by you. So they have to have a good backbone, but not from righteousness, because we still want your value added. So we don't want them to righteously say, piss off, Zolk, you're causing chaos, but we want them to say, hey, Zolk, that adds value. I'll call you in those moments. And you know that they will. So they get you.
And you know what? Thank you for sharing all that, because the reality is we face it here at Smart Build, but every company that when I've seen through the construction ecosystem before I started my own company, they all had the same problems. That everybody wanted to get to the founder, the leader, because they were personable, they were intelligent, they had all the attributes that everyone does look up to.
They make decisions on the spot. They'll flow things out the door 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
really, and quite honestly, that's everyone in the construction ecosystem that's aspiring to have their own company, is that they've got mental fortitude to try and pull this off, and then they have the gumption to try it, right? Which, when you put the two hand in hand, they say it's bravado. I think it's kind of mildly like, you're autistic, but it is something, right? To want to say
It
you're going
is
to go ahead and
something.
do it.
I reckon we could plot it and diagnose it, but we're of the generation that none of us did. So
Awesome. Last question I have for you. Okay. When do you start thinking about leadership change in an organization?
God, it's whenever you're ready. I mean, some people, they're going to stay as the founder leader because they love it until they're 80. Other people, they're ready to be exiting by 30.
See, I was ready to go after week one. Like, hey, somebody else can take this over right away. I think
Yeah,
a
but
lot
then
of
you've got
people
to
don't put any
really
planning.
commit.
They don't put
You got
any
to commit.
planning into it.
Sorry.
Sorry. I was going to say, a lot of people don't plan for the next stage of their business. They really think that that's going to happen somewhere in the future, and then the future arrives.
You can plan for it, but to be honest, it comes down to your intention and your commitment to it, because you can't assume that apprentice is going to raise through the ranks and still be with you in 20 years, or that high potential person's not going to get poached or have a car crash or have a divorce and end up moving across the country. Like, people don't follow linear, clear paths. So you can't hedge your bets on one person. You actually can't probably predict who is going to be your best key successor. It might be a new person. It might be someone came up through the ranks you didn't recognize, but they just kept growing. So for me, the best tip is if you've committed to exiting, exit and try a few people. Like it's a trial and error process, but commit to it and keep going until you've got it. It's it's not going to follow a plotted plan. People just aren't that. They aren't that plotted.
And the reason I ask you for that, Zoe, is that it's intentional. A lot of people don't realize that as your company grows in construction and you start having multiple crews and you have multiple departments that you're running, you're now running different companies within a company. So every project is a company. And if you start getting on some of these large scale projects, which is what every contractor's dream is, to build a stadium somewhere where their favorite sporting team plays, you'll realize that really quickly that they're now running an area of your business and you have to be prepared for that area of business. So it's not necessarily about you are no longer the CEO of your own company. It's more the fact that you will have departments and somebody's going to have to take over those departments and they have to follow a model that you want to establish for them and be prepared for it because when you get the work, then you go, oh crap, now we're going to hire a whole bunch of people. I'm not ready for this yet.
Now, if I could have influence over an organization like that, I would want the founder to have nothing on his to-do list. I want him to be the least busy in the room, and I want him to go out and I want him to just be the morale. I want him to go out and visit people on the sites, be the internal auditor, come up with the ideas, make the comments to the lead foreman on the project that says, hey, look, mate, this would really help you here. So he needs to know, feel, and breathe every touch point of his organization and not be too busy to do so.
I love
Then
that.
he'll growing and shaping as he wants it to be.
You know what? There's people in my organization that have their calendar blocked off for 8 hours a day, and I just don't understand how they do it. But we can discuss that another day. Zoe, thank you so much. People know how to get in touch with me. How do they get in touch with Zoe in case they want to say, hey, Zoe, I need you to give us a hand? How can you help them?
I'm always approachable. LinkedIn is the easiest. So Zoe Dryden, look me up on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only one. And I will say right now, I practice what I preach. So you'll find I'm never too busy. So you will hear back from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, Zoe. Look forward to staying in touch. And you know what? If you're ever in Toronto, love to host you for some gelato. We have some good places here in Toronto.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Zolk, and good
Thank
luck with
you.
everything.
Thank you for listening to the Contender's Edge podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Follow the podcast to get new episodes the moment they go live.